Hey everybody, Nick Henderson here from 4PlayerNetwork.com. I'm here with Brad Simons.
Yo!
And we actually had an opportunity this past week to, courtesy of Bethesda and Arkane, and even the Alamo Drafthouse here in Austin, Texas, we had a chance to sit down and get some hands-on time with Prey.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
Wait, I've played Prey before, Nick.
Have you?
Yeah, it was 360 launch window.
Yeah, that's totally the exact series we're talking about.
This is kind of a weird series.
This is a weird series, and the strange thing about this game is that it's called Prey, but it really, you know, when you get right down to it, doesn't have a whole lot to do at all with previous games in the series.
Are you Native American in this?
No.
Are you Tommy Hawk?
No. Was that his name?
I think so.
Was it really Hawk? Okay.
I think it was Tom Hawk.
Well, so anyways, for those of you who may not be familiar with the background, this is actually a pretty big deal because a few years ago at E3 they announced Prey 2. That was kind of a big thing. We were all super excited about it. Then that game was quietly kind of scrapped, and there's been a lot of rumors floating around about what was going to happen to that project. And ultimately, it kind of ended up in the hands of Arkane and Bethesda.
Makers of Dishonored.
Makers of Dishonored.
And Dark Messiah, Might and Magic.
Exactly. But, you know, up until that point, we didn't really know anything about what this game was ultimately going to end up being, if it was going to even resemble what we had already seen before. Turns out it doesn't really resemble what we saw before at all. And what we have instead is a totally new premise, totally new character, totally new setting, and it pulls, like, the Prey 2 demo we saw a few years ago was pulling inspiration from a bunch of different things like Blade Runner and stuff. This seems a little bit... This is
completely different. This is
completely different.
At a first glance, you know, I was worried this would be a little like BioShock or whatever. And it is kind of like BioShock.
There's definitely elements of BioShock.
You definitely see the Dishonored influence in this game. A lot of people have been kind of referring to this as some more actually a spiritual successor to System Shock 2, which was an RPG, even more so than BioShock was.
Yes, to even take the the inspiration a bit further, like actually, Bethesda was doing actually a cool thing in partnership with the Alamo Drafthouse, which is where we got to play it, where they're actually screening movies that were, loosely, inspiring this game. Yeah. So they're showing things like Starship Troopers and The Matrix, just to name a few.
Which I don't really get those vibes.
I don't know.
From this.
I don't know. I mean, certainly not from the very beginning.
No.
Maybe more of The Matrix versus Starship Troopers, but the way this footage is going to kind of play out, I played for about 20 minutes or so, and it was kind of more focused on story, and then we jumped ahead about 4 or 5 hours into the game. Brad took over. And that's we're gonna dig a little bit more into like the mechanics of the game.
Yeah.
But what you're watching right now is when I literally just picked up the controller and started the game from the very, very beginning.
It looks good.
It does look good.
Got a glance. It looks good.
It does look good. And one of the first most striking things about this demo when I picked it up was, Arkane is a studio that, when I played Dishonored, they did a really awesome job of exemplifying how you can tell a story without ever really pulling the player out. So everything that kind of unfolds naturally while you're controlling the character. And even when you do, like, the first thing I did in the demo was when I got up was I walked over to that computer and there was emails, whatever, and I was just scrolling through it, and it felt very interactive without actually like the game doesn't pause. I can still walk around and move around while I'm tapping on the screen and going through the UI on the computer.
It's got that Doom 3 UI.
A little bit.
Yeah. Tech 3 or whatever.
So essentially, the setup of this game, we're going to try to avoid spoilers as much as possible. In fact, the early hour of this game, from what I hear, I didn't even play the full hour because I didn't want to spoil it for myself.
Yeah.
But we hear it's pretty special, and I only played about the first 15-20 minutes before we jumped ahead. So just kind of the general setup, you actually choose your character at the beginning, it's a male or a female, and you wake up on like at first it's not really a space station. You wake up and you think you're in like San Francisco or something like that, and you're part of some kind of weird experiment. Like they pick you up and you're the subject of an experiment. They're taking you to be a part of this experiment, so that's why you get in the helicopter and they're taking you to this place where you're going to be part of an experiment. You don't know what the experiment is at all. They don't really tell you. It's very much left a mystery up until a certain point in the story. So
can I ask you something?
Yeah, go for it.
You said, we know that there's some kind of like mind fuckery going on.
Yes,
like when we went to this event, they had us take like an splotch,
a psychological exam,
psychological test. But you also mentioned in this footage, or when you played, that you chose female, but it seemed like you were playing a man. Do you think that's like some mind fuckery going on?
I mean, it's also
like
I could have been mistaken. I just because I remember I was loosely booting it up, and you know I was still kind of talking to you at first, and I picked the female character, but I noticed when I was walking around, I you know.
You had very manly arms.
Very manly arms.
Hairy arms.
And I'm wondering if that was intentional or if that was actually maybe a glitch.
Maybe it's just real progressive, you know? I mean, who's to say that a woman couldn't have, you know, very hairy Robin Williams arms?
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's neither here nor there. What you're seeing right now is, like, you literally just played through the title card. You're basically flying through the city on the helicopter, and they're letting the title card play out, and the producer and director and all that stuff. So you get to this lab, you get an elevator, they take you down, and at this point, still very much mystery. Like they don't tell you anything going into this. Were you watching it all when I was?
I was purposely not watching.
So this is very Dishonored in that. Everyone that you talk to in this game, you kind of just walk up to them, and the interactions happen right there. There's, as far as I can tell,
does it pull you? You can move around.
Yes, you can. Although actually, in this part right here, like when you talk to like key specific characters, they for a brief moment they pull you in, but as soon as like it pulled it like that, I was moving around. He kept talking, so I was walking around the world. After that, I kind of walk over to this door here in a second while he's talking to you.
I think it's gross. He reminds me of the fat guy from Fear.
I think he's supposed to be your dad.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Dad.
I could be wrong, but you have the same last name, so I think he's supposed to be your dad.
Okay.
But he's talking to you about being a part of this weird experiment.
So your fat, gross dad wants you to be a part of an experiment.
Yeah. So here's actually where the experiment begins. You walk into this room. There's a single button in the room, and you walk up to the glass, and there's these scientists talking on the other end, and they ask you to do. Like it's also they use this as kind of like a very simple tutorial as well, like as far as just basic movement and picking things up, which as you can tell from the very beginning of this demo, I was already pretty keen on. If you've played Dishonored, you're going to be right at home as far as how this game controls.
It's funny because you get the tutorial, yet later when we jump into gameplay, not right now. I'm kind of like, how the fuck does this thing play? There's stuff attacking. Yeah. But yeah, we'll get to that.
Because they literally, in a second, they throw you into the deep end. But like, the first thing they have you do is like, pick up these squares in the quickest way you can think of. And I was like, okay, so I just pick up the 3 blocks and set them aside, right? And he talks to you like, oh, is that it? Okay, is that it? And then like you go into the next room.
You're a train wreck.
You go into the very next room. There's a chair sitting there, and there's not a whole lot of there's like nothing in the room. The scientist asks you to. I'm going to give you a few seconds. I want you to hide. And I'm like, okay, well, there's only like one logical place I can hide because if you
would think like that.
Like I tried hiding behind like these the 2 sides of the wall here, but they're made of glass, so even if I was to hide there, he'd be able to see right through it and see me. Like right here, I was like, oh, well, that's not going to work, so I guess I'm going to hide behind the chair, which I think is kind of what they were leading you to do. But once again, he acts...
If you're a puppet, sure.
Disappointed, sure. But
so they're doing some like...
They're
doing some interesting stuff
They seem disappointed that I just hid behind the chair like a normal person.
Well, I would have just turned invisible, but...
I don't think you can do that.
Well, maybe.
Yet.
When you get your plasmids, or I don't know.
And then this was the room I think he asked you. Like, I jumped over this, and then he was like, I want you to jump over this as fast as possible and hit this button. And once again, he's like, that's not what I was expecting.
This is some Andrew Ryan shit, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this felt
Would you kindly jump over this thing and hit this button?
Well, so... One of the main mechanics of this game.
See, I'm curious if you just like didn't do anything. Were you getting the vibe that they would like react to that?
Possibly, yeah. Like it's. I'm sure if I sat there and did nothing, they would probably react to it. I didn't actually try that, to be totally honest. I probably should have. Yeah. But this is one of the main mechanics of this game, which we're going to kind of hint at a little bit later, is aliens are involved in this game, and you are kind of.
I would hope so. It is a game in the Prey series.
Yes. So
if there wasn't aliens, then this would be even more ridiculous.
Yes. But you are essentially absorbing abilities from aliens and using them to your advantage in combat, which is cool.
Don't think you did that in the first Prey.
No, that's kind of unique to this game as well. But it seems to me like at the beginning of this experiment, they're expecting you to kind of know some of these abilities already, maybe, and you don't, so they're kind of surprised.
There seems to be a lot of mystery to this story, which is exciting.
There is definitely a lot of mystery, and that is one of the first things that struck me about this game is, even after playing just 15 minutes, and I got to a point where there's some mindfuckery going on here, and we kind of intentionally left that out of this video for the sake of not spoiling that.
I got you.
Which you'll see, you'll kind of see where that cuts off in a second. But
this is kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Especially because like BioShock doesn't really exist anymore, and I wasn't a big fan of Infinite, and I'm a little kind of over Dishonored.
But you didn't even finish Dishonored 2.
I know.
And I'm calling you out. You out.
Dishonored's a good game. I'm over that setting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that was immediately apparent to me when I was playing this demo was that I thought, at first glance, I thought this game it didn't quite look like an Arkane game, but the moment I picked it up and I started talking to characters and seeing how the world felt and how I could pick up anything and throw it, and it was all very physicsy, it immediately resembled like Dishonored to me.
Yeah. I was
signature
I'm also
Arkane.
getting some Deus Ex vibes from this.
Yes. And that's also probably, if you want to talk about video game inspirations, I think that's probably,
well, that era of shooter.
Oh, look at Alien.
Yeah.
So that right there also hinted, so the alien was, like, he picked up his coffee cup, because he asked someone to bring him coffee. They bring him the coffee. He picks up the coffee cup and he's like, there's no coffee in this cup. And then as soon as he says that, it, like, springs to life and like, chokes him out. And then they gas the room and you black out. And
Nick,
then,
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you still think these aliens are lame?
I did say that at some point,
you
didn't I?
Say
okay. The thing is, I don't feel comfortable saying that with any certainty right now because I've only literally played about 20 minutes of this game. I've watched you play some, and I have a feeling they're holding a lot of cards close to their chest on this one. So the only thing I said when I said lame, I'm just saying from just aesthetically,
you wanted little
visually,
gray men with big eyes.
I mean, they're just kind of like ooze monsters. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I see what you mean.
But I mean, I can't be super excited about Resident Evil 7 and then turn around and talk shit about these aliens because they look a little like.
Maybe I should talk about killing these aliens, Nick.
Yes, you should. But we're going to in a second. So, let's go ahead. This is actually the end of the story demo. So let's go ahead and cut straight to the gameplay sequence because
I spent some time.
This is like
fighting these fuckers.
Yeah, this is like 4.5, 5 hours into the game. They kind of throw you into the meat of it,
and you get a foam gun.
Yeah, dude, you were throwing foam everywhere.
I'm not gonna lie though, I was a little disappointed that you couldn't put foam on top of foam like in Shadow Complex, which you're able to use to like get up to like places maybe you weren't supposed to be yet.
But you could
here you could stick them to like walls and use those as platforms, so you can kind of make stairs on a wall maybe, but you couldn't stack foam on top of foam. Well, I mean, I don't know. I did see windows covered in foam, but
there is still lots of room for experimentation. But I see you use the foam gun.
Yeah, I mean,
this is big.
They just throw you into it.
This is big. You just missed it. This is big. Damage numbers.
Yeah. I mean, Nick, this is a goddamn role-playing game, and there's one big difference between this and Dishonored or BioShock, and that's that you have like a full-blown inventory.
Yes.
Like System Shock, like a Deus Ex. You have that weapon wheel, but Dishonored didn't really have that, and you didn't really feel like you were collecting much of like shit,
Yeah.
Like equipment in that game. But this game definitely has that proper System Shock inventory, so that was quite kind of exciting to see.
Dishonored was definitely more combat or stealth, stealth combat focused. This is definitely more.
I don't think there's really stealth here, or maybe there is, but you weren't really getting that vibe from this demo. They kind of throw you in here, and there's enemies to fight. And the reason I was using the foam gun a lot is because you had a lot of ammo of it, and not a lot of ammo of anything else. And it was just kind of, it would freeze the enemies, and I was kind of getting overwhelmed just trying to get a handle on the controls, so I just kind of wanted some breathing room. Yeah. After shooting all this foam everywhere, I found it kind of hard to run away from things because I created this obstacle course for myself. But I was just kind of trying not to die. It does seem like, I don't know if this is going to play more like a survival horror or whatever, but I did run out of my ammo, at least my non-foam ammo, really quick, and, I had to rely on using my wrench.
It's funny you mentioned survival horror, and maybe this kind of ties, but you asked me about whether I thought these enemies were lame, because I go on record, I did at some point say, yes, I think the enemies are kind of lame.
I know what you're about to say.
And I got kind of survival horror vibes from this when it was first announced and it was first shown. So, but like the enemy designs don't necessarily instill fear in
Let me tell you what's really fucking cool and kind of creepy though.
Okay.
Is that you don't know where the enemy's gonna be.
Yes.
Because of these fucking mimics, and you'll be shooting some of them, and like, oh, I almost killed it, and then it'll run away, and then you'll round a corner, and you're like,
where to go?
Oh fuck!
And
any of these things can be the mimic. Where the fuck is it? And you get into these situations where you're like, then you keep walking, and then it like is behind you because you passed it up because it turned into an object.
Yes,
and there's some really cool.
That is a unique feeling. I'll give it that
for sure,
and I'm very excited.
And it adds to the kind of survival horror aspect to it. And it's hard to get that vibe because one, it's a demo, and two, and I was really low on ammo, but maybe it's a situation where you really got to be watching your health because your health items are very much like in Dishonored, where you don't have regenerating health. So I could definitely see a scenario where you're low on ammo, you're low on health, and it's like there's these mimics around you. You're like, oh,
didn't
God.
You say at one point when you were playing that one of the mimics turned into a health kit?
Yeah, and I thought I was picking up a health kit, and the mimic attacked me.
See, that's cool.
Yeah, it's very fucking cool.
And in a game very much like
but you understand, like now for them to be able to do that and have the enemies turn into like health kits and stuff, they kind of have to be these more like abstract, ethereal, whatever these goo monsters. Or these wispy monsters, because you can't have like a little green man turning into
it's not even
a
that
chair.
I don't
That's just weird.
It's not even that I don't like the way they look necessarily. It's just that I was hoping for more of a horror feel, and I'm hoping that the fear comes from that uncertainty. And obviously, there's going to be more enemy types that we haven't seen yet. Obviously, they're leaning very heavily on the mimics because that's very unique, and it demonstrates probably one of the biggest elements of this game, which kind of sets it apart, which is the ability to, one, for enemies to disguise themselves as everyday items, and two, your ability to absorb that ability and also disguise yourself as any number of items.
Which I can't fucking wait. And it sucks because we didn't get to that in the demo. Who even knows if the demo had that? I'm not going to talk about why we didn't get to see some of that stuff. But what you're seeing here is this kind of scan visor. It's very Metroid Prime-esque.
Yeah.
Even where you actually have to like scan enemies to like learn their abilities and stuff.
And so I'm watching you go.
The story.
And when you're going down this hallway, and there's all these like fire shooting out of these pipes, and you obviously use the foam gun to seal those up so you can pass down the hallway. I'm wondering, are there going to be lots of scenarios where
I think
there's
so.
multiple solutions?
I have a feeling that the progression is going to be very kind of Deus Ex, where there's going to be a lot of multiple paths and using various abilities and items and stuff like foam to find these alternate paths and whatnot.
Does that foam like become like rock hard as soon as you fire?
Yeah, like you'll see a lot of situations where you see like little secrets blocked off with foam, and I gotta say, when I was playing this, I was really confused because when you're at a demo event, they're throwing story at you. There's voices talking, to you, and multiple objectives. At least in a game like this, and I'm just trying to take it all in and not die.
Yeah.
So it gets a little confusing as to what I was supposed to be doing here. But it definitely seems like.
And this might be one of the things you were confused about, but that visor that you put on. Is that what you use to scan enemies and take
exactly? And like later on, I'm trying to like scan one of these mimics mid combat, because I was trying to learn its ability. I don't really know what I was doing by scanning it, but I know you have to scan it to acquire.
And also that in and of
tech.
itself, but the fact that this game is built around this idea of scanning enemies to take other alien abilities kind of implies there's probably going to be a good variety of enemies and different abilities you can absorb. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and especially since this is the first one they're showing, this ability to kind of like to mimic things. It kind of makes me wonder, like, well, if that's what you're opening with, what other abilities are you going to be able to get? Like, that seems pretty huge from a a gameplay standpoint. So
for sure, it almost makes me want like a prop hunt style multiplayer, honestly, because I mean that pretty much is prop hunt,
dude.
At a certain point.
Oh man, I didn't even think about this.
Prop hunt plus foam guns sounds pretty good to me. But you know, like, all this felt good.
Yeah,
and like the structurally, it seemed like a good Western like shooter RPG should be. You know, kind of like a Deus Ex, kind of like a Dishonored, kind of like a BioShock. But beyond that, I until I can really start messing around with these alien abilities. Oh, you saw there, I briefly kind of showed off the inventory, and I don't know if it's in this footage, but I kind of went through the menus and we're looking at the skill trees and stuff, and all that seems pretty deep and well put together.
Yeah.
Like, everything looks good in this game. Like, this has the makings of a game that can't possibly be anything but dope.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, and you know, just their pedigree in general just gives me, you know, confidence that this game is going to turn out well. I am very much.
It definitely seems like they're making the game they really want to be making, even though it's called Prey and whatever the fuck that means. It sounds like they had the opportunity of like, listen, just make whatever you want. And we're gonna try to find like an IP to like attach to that makes the most sense, so we can maybe potentially sell more copies. I don't know if Prey at this point is over 10 years old, and I don't think people really cared about it that much when it first came out. So it seems like a weird choice, but
this is probably going to be the game that puts that franchise on the map.
But what even is it a franchise when you've had two games and they're both called the same thing and they're both nothing like each other? Like, that's absolutely insane.
Beats the hell out of me.
It's like Doom came out and it was a hit shooter, and then another game came out later called Doom and it was an RTS.
Why is that dude electrified, Brad?
This
is that just like one of the mimic aliens? It's like,
I don't know. This might be Chris Davis footage, actually. I don't remember fighting this guy in this scenario.
Yeah. So.
Or no. He got a little further.
This is a combination of Brad and Chris Davis playing this game. So, this that's like.
There does seem to be like some slow-mo like ability too that you have when you start, which is like always good. I think any like shooter or first-person, or like honestly any game
that gives the player
gives the option to do like slow-mo is probably a better game because of it.
Yeah,
I've never thought of a game where it's like, this game was like all right until the slow-mo stuff, and then I hated it.
Well, yeah, because it gives the player the opportunity to be ultra precise and feel like a badass.
It's just cool.
Oh, that dude's still coming. Look.
Yeah, this is definitely Chris Davis footage because I wouldn't be running like a little bitch.
So
see, fucking mimic, jeez,
dude. He's in a fight with an electrified dude while trying to avoid actual mimics in the environment. This game looks cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really good. It's hard to say too much more beyond where we're at because we know that the story seems like cool. Like, they're gonna be doing some mindfuckery stuff, but we need to see more of that, obviously. And like the gameplay, the combat, like, it seems super promising, but you know, it was a limited scenario of what we can kind of mess around with. I mean, I saw in like a gameplay trailer, dude just fucking turned into a turret and like gunned down some enemies. Because fucking alien tech, you could turn into shit. Why not a turret?
Why the hell not?
Yeah. So I feel like we got a good taste, and like I kind of can't wait for May now.
Dude, look at this guy. He's like juicing himself up with the fucking box. Oh shit. So yeah, that was what I was actually gonna ask, because I was wondering. There's like water on the floor here, and that dude was completely electrified. So I wonder if you could use that to your advantage. But
yeah, I mean, very kind of BioShock.
This whole game seems like it's going to be very systems driven. There's going to be a lot, kind of like the way we were talking about Zelda and how you can kind of combine things and kind of create these
yeah, there seems to be some physics too. I had like a kind of a gravity grenade or something, and it just sucked everything in the environment and was like real physicsy and cool.
Yeah, I mean. that kind of
this is a year that's packed, and I'm falling really behind in the stuff that I've been playing. But I kind of can't wait to get my hands on this next month, less than a month from now.
Yeah. So I think what we've talked about so far kind of summarizes our experience with the game. There's obviously still a lot to learn about this project, and I'm personally hoping that kind of keep it
I'm
close to their chest.
I'm blackout.
I think they've shown just the right amount of stuff to get people's interest, and I don't think they need to show anything more because I think they've sold it. It's I'm very excited about it. I'm like you, I'm a BioShock fan. I'm very much looking forward to that kind of experience, but also I love Dishonored. So combining those two, like the best of both worlds in that kind of sense, and making a game that kind of feels like a conglomeration of those things sounds totally
and in space
fucking awesome. In space, yes. So I think that kind of summarizes what we played this week. So first of all, thank you very much to Bethesda and Arkane for having us out, and the Alamo Drafthouse for hosting. That was really cool. The game comes out May 5th, and of course, we'll be talking about it, I'm sure, a lot on our podcast, 4Player podcast. Yeah. Check it out. That's a pretty cool show, I hear.
I hear it's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. Anyways, thanks for watching, listening, whatever you're doing. That's it.
Bye.